Welcome back, everybody, to In the Loop. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Michael Burpo, and today we're going to be talking about the best 3 changes to keep in 2021. Obviously, 2020 was a crazy year, and there was a lot of changes that affected the e-commerce and digital marketing space, as well as branding overall. And I'm joined by Ben Smithy, CEO of the Smithy Group, as well as Ross Cockrum, CEO of Punchmark, to talk about the biggest changes and what they're aiming for business owners and they themselves are going to be keeping. And we get into talking about a little bit of leadership and how to utilize tech. It's a really good one. And this episode is brought to you by Punchmark, the jewelry industry's leading website provider. Join the community of nearly 500 other jewelry stores in choosing Punchmark's easy-to-run and e-commerce-enabled website platform by visiting punchmark.com for your free trial demo. And this episode is brought to you by the Smithy Group, a digital growth agency that helps leaders and businesses dream bigger and achieve multi-generational integrity. Through insights and intelligence, digital marketing, and advertising solutions, they help businesses expand their business and grow their revenue. The Smithy Group has helped hundreds of businesses surpass their goals and believe that whatever your business, whatever your story, that will make it matter to your audience. A very special thank you to Podium for sponsoring this episode and making it all happen. And you'll hear from more of them later on in the show. Enjoy. All right, we're back with Ben and Ross. You guys were actually on for the first episode of last season and the last episode from last season. So I'm really excited. You guys can kind of get us going with season 2 as well. So we're talking about the 3, things that we noticed the most in 2020. Obviously, a very tumultuous year. One of my favorite sayings I saw someone say is, years can pass in moments and moments can pass in years. And it's amazing how much change is compressed so quickly. Ben, when you think back on last year, what sort of digital changes and compressions that you saw in the digital space did you notice the most, and which ones do you think are here to stick around?
That's interesting because I think the things I noticed the most, one, those that were averse still to social and digital marketing and e-commerce and things of that nature finally came around to, okay, well, not only, it doesn't matter what I think about it, it's what do I need to do to grow and save my business. So that was one. That was out of necessity. So I don't necessarily think it's like this whole revelation. I think it's just something that is here to stay. I think once they see the power of it, once they've seen the power of digital and social and e-commerce and its ability to add and support their business, they're going to stick around to that. I think the second thing is when people had more time to invest and start doing the things that we had been talking to them about when it came to content creation, when it came to brand building, that type of stuff. I think investing the time and seeing the returns that they saw and seeing like, oh, this could work. And it's specifically around content creation was a really interesting thing that people started thinking of themselves and diving into content creation more. And I think the third thing was branding. Like just absolute a focus and back to home base on branding and really developing a strong brand, developing, as we've talked about before, the human brand, and then really distributing that brand and consistent brand messaging across all their platforms, website, email newsletters, social media, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd say one, the biggest change was it really just killed the laggard group that never was going to get in. All of a sudden they were either in or they had no lifeline. 2, it was investing time in content creation and creating really creative content. Creativity is the game changer for businesses today. And 3, really just back to branding and really building a strong brand that's going to differentiate themselves and set them up to future-proof their business in the long run.
Future-proof. That's a good term. I'm going to steal that one also. Ben, you're just full of these terms. I definitely noticed. It's kind of like I went through school for design, and they used to give us projects like this all the time. Things like, hey, we want you to create this like sculpture or like this design, but you can only use like typography. And it's like, that's so like such a limiting factor. But it's like when you limit yourself to only a very bare bones aspect, you really can almost free yourself up to start being even more creative, especially when it's kind of almost optional. You know what I mean, Ross? Where I think a lot of the things that we were kind of pushing people, it was like, in addition to your brick and mortar, you also need to be thinking about your e-commerce space. And now the brick and mortar got shut down. Now it's like, now you have to think about your e-commerce space.
right? And I think Ben said it before. We transitioned from, you used the word optional, to what someone might want and someone might like to add to their business as sort of a benefit to a necessity, to becoming a need and something that's in total parts, a main aspect of their business. And when people are focused, when people are tasked with, the idea of having to discover what content they need to write, how to dig deep into their brand, what their brand's all about, it brings in that human aspect of their business, and the period of soul searching begins again, just as when they first started their business.
Yeah.
They got into the jewelry business because their father was in it or because, whatever, but they stayed in the jewelry business because for some reasons their customers came in and told them about their love story of how the engagement happened, and they fell in love with that aspect of it, and that's what kept them in it. And when people hold on to those ideals, it's the difference. It's the core difference. And when you actually dive into that from a content aspect, and then the technological aspect sort of follows, people realize, wow, I need to be doing all this. I need to be in all these channels. It really changes the game. So I think that despite all the bad things that happened in 2020, obviously, we're walking away from it, I think, as a collective with so many more things that we gained as a whole.
Well, and perspective is a great word, because I think when people have that perspective and they took a step back all of a sudden from the day-to-day of in the store, setting up, meet with the team, sell, go home, try to get some family time in, be back at the store the next day.
Yeah.
When they have a new perspective on there and they're eliminating commutes and they're all these things, all of a sudden it lets them look at the future. And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of business owners in the small business space and in the jewelry space specifically sat back and they said, ooh, I don't know if I like the future outlook of where my business is potentially heading without this. Now, this can sound counterintuitive because the year that a lot of retailers had, which was awesome and epic.
Banger, yeah.
But I would say a lot of them took a step back and said, wait a minute, is my business going in the direction that I want it to be? And all of a sudden now they're like, wait a minute, what do I need to do to get it to this space? And they had this chance to look at it and not really enjoy the perspective that they were looking at.
Right, totally. And a lot of people talk about, those retreats that you could go on as even on a personal aspect of, with your church or with a group of people that you go on, and you get this high level 36,000 foot view of your life, of your business. And that's what it gave us. It gave us the same kind of aspect. I mean, we didn't close our doors as a tech company at any point, but at the same time, we were forced to work remotely. We were forced to not go through the same habits we were doing every single day presently in the office. It gave us a different view, and that perspective, really helped us. And I know for the sake of retailers, they had to get honest with themselves. And in some cases, it was an ugly reality of a possibility of, wait, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
What would happen if we went under? What would happen if we had to just close operations and not be able to afford rent? And when you have to think on that kind of dire situation, it forces you to, you walk away with all the important values, and everything else just falls through like a sieve, and you lose all the things that you didn't really care as much about and that aren't important going forward.
I mean, we're not gonna argue or we're not going to try to wallpaper over this and say that, COVID was a good thing. Obviously, horrible loss of life, terrible, but it's not like it's going anywhere right now, and we need to take these learning opportunities. Maybe we can have the opportunity this is an e-commerce podcast that's kind of the general or more of like an online digital tech podcast, but we are kind of very close to the jewelry industry. I was wondering if you guys could give me your perspective on where the jewelry industry is going. Because, I love that Wayne Gretzky quote, you don't skate to the puck, you skate to where the puck's going. I wonder about the jewelry industry because I feel like before 2020, it was seriously, it seemed like 90% of people didn't even really see any value in online. But now I think that's changing. Am I wrong?
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think if you look at the future, you look at the future consumer, right? So it's very linear. If you look at the future business, you look at the future consumer. If you look at the future consumer, you see where they're at. Where are they going for information, to be entertained, to dream, to make purchases, all of these things. And it's online in that space. And don't read between the lines and think that I'm saying retail is dead, because that's not at all what I'm saying. What I am saying is to be relevant to that consumer, their journey starts in their phone, on social, online, researching all of those. So the future retailer needs to be really adept at creating a lot of different content for a lot of different platforms and places and things to reach the consumer and build their journey. A consumer's journey is no longer vertical, it's more horizontal.
Yeah, and winding.
So as they're going across platforms, as they're going across from a social discovery to a Google search, to a YouTube video, to your website, to a blog, to a review site, back to your website, to book an appointment, back home, back to the store, an online purchase, whatever that may be, the future customer journey, customer experience is a lot more diverse. So that omnichannel presence has to be there. And if you're going to be present across all those omnichannel spaces, then you need to have sort of this evergreen approach of always on, always going, always moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, to add to that same thing, as far as the channels that everyone needs to be on, it's sort of an ever-present sort of situation. We're in this big age of information right now where, just look, not to get political, but we're also in the age of misinformation, right? I mean, there's so much stuff out there that, hashtag fake news and everything like that. And what ends up happening is we're also dawning on this sort of age of transparency, where transparency will always win. The more transparent you could be, the more human you could be, the more your following, if you will, really identifies with you, right? And your brand. So when you put yourself out there on these channels, I think the key word here is to be yourself. Don't try to think about it as like, how do we market ourselves as a classic, reputable jeweler? Like, stop. Just be yourself. Just focus on what you do best. Focus on your passion, and everything else will fall in place, because I feel like we're at the point where people can see right through the marketing that used to work, the traditional senses of marketing and sort of everything that's sugar-coated. But nowadays, the more real you are with everything from where you volunteer your time to the charities you support and the type of people that you really care about and everything, people are always so afraid to share that kind of stuff. But to be honest, that's what people really care about nowadays,
Yeah.
And I think that's going to go a long way.
Well, and I think there's another layer, and it's probably not a popular viewpoint, but I'll say it, and I think you'll agree with me.
Let's go. Give it to me.
If you scroll across different communities and stuff, you'll get the sense, and it's just a few loud voices. It's not representative of the entire market, and I think that it's not representative of all business owners and retailers and things out there. But we're in danger of an arena and an environment, and I think COVID was a big wake-up call. That you mentioned service and things of that nature, that retailers are in the service business.
Yeah.
And they're in the service business to cater to the customers. And if we're not careful in times of, feast and harvest and abundance, you start to get a little bit fat and happy and a little bit particular about, well, the customer's asking for this, or they're asking for this, or consumers are so bad and they're so picky and this, and this, and complaining about where you're getting your income from. And we lose sense that we're in the service business. Like, if we're not really focused on the customer and really driving around convenience for the customer versus convenience for my own ownership or my business and things like that, we are going to lose in the long run. You have to show up for the customer. So I think sometimes that necessity and that sort of fear-based drive that COVID brought retailers into this next level of customer engagement. Well, wait a minute, things that they'd go after and do for a customer that they wouldn't have done before, they all of a sudden were doing and looking at. And so I think it's a good wake-up call.
Oh, I'm not going to stand on this Facebook live stream for 45 minutes just to make one sale. Screw that. It's like, now they're just lining up, and then they get better at it, and now they're not just making one sale, they're making multiple sales and being creative and showing. I think I love that term, omnichannel. It feels very techy, but to break that down for you, it's like having the same experience, a universal experience online as in store, and having the tech working seamlessly and perfectly across it. Things like, we're sponsored today by Podium, and Podium has a web chat that plugs right onto your website, and things like having a quick response time when someone sends you a message, having someone be able to get back to someone really quickly when they inquire about a custom design or when they have a phone call, getting back to them. I think those are all the types of things, especially in a service space like jewelry is, kind of really, I think, tie it all together and give you that omni-channel experience. But to hear more from Podium really quickly, we're going to jump away and we'll be back in a minute. Our clients know that it doesn't matter how great your website is if people can't find it. Podium helps you get found and chosen by making it easy to get reviews from your happiest customers, just by sending a simple review request through text. In fact, with Podium, every step of your customer journey is powered by text messaging, so you can talk to your customers on the channels they prefer. Start the conversation on your website with Podium Web Chat. Set appointments, answer questions, and close deals all in the same thread. When it's time to pay, just send a request over text so your customers can pay in seconds. And now that you've got a happy customer, send them a review invite over text too, so you can rise up the local rankings and start the cycle all over again. With all of this, plus powerful integrations and features in one consolidated inbox, Podium is your tool for customer communication. Send a text, get more done. Punchmark clients will receive 25% off when they sign up for Podium. Learn more at podium.com/punchmark. Thanks, back to the show. So we're back. Let's talk about a couple of brands and a couple of maybe real life examples of people who are doing this and that we think that we're doing. Maybe not just in the jewelry industry. If you have an example, that'd be great. But outside of it, places that you think that are exemplifying omnichannel as well as being human.
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of restaurants.
Yeah, they do it. Yeah.
You know, they were hit the hardest, but I think they've really tried to adapt. And you look at Peter Luger in Brooklyn. They are historically known for doing business how they want to do it, how they've done it for 100-odd years or whatever. We don't do delivery. We don't do this. You come in, you order this. You order steak for 1, steak for 2, or steak for 3.
We got 4 options. Yeah, and it tastes good.
Exactly. And all of a sudden, you can order Peter Luger to get delivered. And the experience is pretty dang good, man. Like the way the steak comes is still cooked. They figured out the delivery system. They figured out the best delivery containers to preserve the juiciness and the flavorful and just the integrity of the order. They've figured out the way, the temperature to cook versus make it perfect for delivery. It's a great experience. And I would be surprised if they don't come back to delivering sort of an omni-channel experience, even after COVID, because I think people will want that, right? I look at Jacob and Alex. When I go to Jacob and Alex's place, right? If Jacob and I are having a guys' night and the ladies are doing something and we're watching the girls, well, we're not able to go out and take the twins to Peter Luger, but we want steak night on guys' night. You know what I mean? And so we can order Peter Luger, have an awesome steak at home, watching Frozen with the girls, and just have a regular old guys' night. But no, it's just,
it ties in.
I think when you look at those type of things, I think the restaurant industry's done really well at adapting and creating an omni-channel experience for them, right? And I would challenge, I think that omni-channel, the future of omni-channel is not even the same experience, but an optimized experience for the channel across all channels, right? So text being different experience that I want to have via Podium than the email experience than the in-person experience.
Sure. Yeah, and I definitely would have said restaurants in the sense that they had to try the hardest, I think, as far as making sure that their name was out there. They are also being stitched across other apps that people are using every day, like, Postmates and such. And so in addition to that, there's a brand that just my personal taste I don't really like, and nor do retailers really like. But Walmart, their biggest competitor was Amazon. And they took it to the level that Amazon brought it. They, in fact, came very close to the number of e-commerce sales in certain months last year, being able to actually achieve that. And they're also looping in other, outlets and merchants to be able to sell on Walmart.com. So while I honestly don't like the brand, I think they have a tendency to try to, take over the world in a bad way. So I don't want to shout them out in that regard. But you think about omnichannel and someone who's actually done it well. I hate to say it, but they did. And, you look at other vessels out there. I brought up in a previous podcast, Home Depot, being able to find what I was looking for in the aisle and how many they had in quantity, where the exact bin was for the product I was looking for. That kind of experience you're seeing more and more across the board. And that's exactly what we're going for. Punchmark, speaking of ourselves, as, taking the edge integration of the edge point of sale, making that rich experience from the customer standpoint, the same wish list, the same information, going on the website and adding the birthday and anniversary so that by the time you go back in the store, now you have one more piece of material to be able to market to them, and that means a lot to us, and we've put a lot of stake in that ourselves.
See, I'm going to go opposite field with Walmart, though, real quick.
Good.
I think that I'm actually bullish on Walmart. Yes, I get people are against big box and all that type of stuff. But when you look at it, I think a lot of people look at the old Walmart and still have this vintage Walmart mindset. They've stepped it up. When it comes between like Walmart and Target, when you're younger, you're like, oh, Target, this is it's like cleaner, newer, like fresher, all this type of stuff. But honestly, when it comes to prices, when it comes to all this type of stuff and the brands that they carry, the other thing is, for most households in the United States, you're within 5 miles from a Walmart.
Sure.
So I think people are not as bullish as they should be when it comes to the future of business and Walmart. And I look at it from the other side as like job creation in terms of the number of jobs that they provide in the US, especially in a time like during COVID and those type of things and what they were able to do. Walmart, just as equal to Amazon.
Yeah.
Walmart provided so much opportunity for households to just keep on living their daily lives. Yeah, it's just wait till drones come about and you look at having a drone station within 5 miles of everybody's house. That's a game changer, right?
Totally. No, it's a good opinion. I like that perspective on it because I think you're right. I think in my mind, they became less of the scary big monster, you know what I mean? As far as...
Yeah.
And more of like an approachable brand, I'll say that just myself, but I think common rule of thumb, though, a lot of retailers are like, oh, Walmart, they came in, they shut us down, all the small mom and pops went out of business. You know what I mean? So
last mile delivery and all those things that no one wants to do.
Yeah, I get it.
But related to that, though, I think like an example of, at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's continuing, I heard this on a podcast, and honestly, I don't know if this is true, but it proves my point, so I'm going to say it anyways. The Nile River used to flow the opposite direction, but over the course of thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, it reversed course. So how do you reverse the course of a river? They say that it was because of some type of earthquake or tsunami. But what happens is when a river starts flowing the opposite direction is it's not going to revert back and start flowing the other way, overnight, or just because that's how it always did. And I think that that's kind of like a pretty long, drawn out analogy for the e-commerce experience. The amount of growth in e-commerce is the equivalent of 10 years of previous growth. It used to be 1% growth or market penetration for e-commerce sales every year. 1 additional percent. Over the course of between the first 4 months of the pandemic, we saw 10 years of market penetration. And it's not like it's going to suddenly drop back down to where it was, which is 13% or something like that. It might drop down a little bit, but people are getting used to being able to order their food online or being able to go in and order delivery. And then, like, I had this experience. You order your food, they tell you which bay you should be driving to. And I was like, bay, what does that mean? And they have these little parking slips where they have little numbers on them. You go out there, they say, pull up to bay number 4. You pull into there, someone brings it out to you, and they know it's you perfectly because you're parked in bay number 4. They say, Michael. I say, yep. They hand it to you. Totally easy exchange. And I'm like, yeah, that's how easy everything needs to be. And suddenly, everybody, because they had to, is a UX designer. Everyone is a user experience designer, and they've all had to come up with creative ways to come around these problems.
Yeah, you don't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Never. You're brushing your teeth with a lot of toothpaste.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? You can't put the toothpaste.
Yeah.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Once you're exposed to it, what is the other one? Like, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like, once you're exposed to it, once you're exposed to a great experience, it's not going to change. I've been preaching that in like every presentation. I'd used Uber and Postmates and Casper as these experience models, not because of their impact on transportation, food delivery, and sleeping. It's their impact in the customer experience. If I don't know where look at how much shipping has changed from it, whether it's USPS, UPS, FedEx, or DHL. If you can't see exactly where your package is, and don't you want to see it on the map when the delivery guy's out? You want to see where his truck is on the map, right?
I need to know. Yeah.
So, and why is that? Uber changed the game for that, right?
Yep.
Frictionless payments.
Exactly.
Right?
And speaking of which, too, it would be remiss to not talk about, brands like FedEx and UPS who sort of, took the partnership aspect in a way where they're splitting up distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. And, I don't remember which is which, but FedEx has like the east side and UPS took the west side from like Memphis on, so like that is to be commended as far as, look at how USPS is struggling right now, just trying to, keep up with things. I'm still getting, it's the 19th of January. I'm still getting Christmas cards. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And like people, like my, the office building had to call me one month, like in November saying, hey, it's not like you to send the rent check late. And I'm like, what? I sent it on like October 20th. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So like USPS took a hit. So just to look at how hard it's been logistically to deliver packages, USPS, FedEx, like, they're on top right now as far as getting through this crazy year and being able to actually not only reach people's doorsteps, but to take on other things like, delivering vaccines, and just like American Airlines and Delta flying vaccines around the world. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
These experiences, though, I can feel it when I experience something that is just like so sound. I just booked on Airbnb for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I booked it for way down the line, and I was like, wow, how amazing is it that they have all the information I want. They've thought of every little bit. Same thing with Uber. Have you ever jumped in an Uber and it's like they find your spot and they go in and it's exactly as it should be and they know where it's going. You don't have to touch anything. It's amazing how thought out these experiences are. And that's a result of many millions of dollars of market development and research and coding. So it's really a pretty cool time, I think, to live, at least in tech.
I would just challenge all the business owners that are listening to really go into the laboratory and workshop your customer experience. Like, really,
great piece of advice.
There's this really cool visual I used to use in presentations of the customer experience mapped out in every single touch point for a Starbucks visit. And when you look at the thousands of touch points, for sure hundreds of touch points in there, it's the same thing. I would venture to say it's even more in the jewelry industry. So if you could map out all of the different customer experience journey and the customer experience touch points for your business and figure out a way to optimize 50% of them, right?
Just a little bit.
Think through 50% of them. You're going to be you're going to crush your competition when it comes to there, because there's nothing, look, marketing and advertising and all of that stuff, everything that we do as a business and businesses, the two businesses here, everything that we do is about lead generation and customer experience in that way. But the best thing you can do to create loyal customers is provide a great experience in there. And I think that when it comes to it, yes, marketing, advertising, websites, all that plays a role. But I think the best thing you can do for your business is also workshop your business, like workshop the customer experience and really see when's the last time you changed your sales process? When's the last time you've upgraded your greeting? When's the last time you've upgraded your phone process for answering telephones? Right? The trivial things, like what could you do to go in the lab and make it better?
Right. I totally agree. I think that, sometimes it's just a matter of language. When you think about the series of touch points, all being a short interaction, and certain language is always said. And I'll never forget being at a restaurant and they were super backed up and slammed. And the way the waitress said, I'm sorry, we're really popular right now. So, whatever. Just the way she spun it and said, we're really popular right now. Not we're really slammed and we have customers beating down our backs, hungry customers. It's like, we're really popular right now was a great way to spin it. And I thought it was a light and fun way to say it.
Yeah.
So even just one different word that you use in your interaction could go a really long way.
Especially when you go to reopen your doors, now is the time to make those changes and surprise people with how great you guys have come. But I think maybe we'll wrap it up right there, unless you guys have any last words. But a very special thank you to Ross and Ben for joining me today, and Podium for sponsoring this episode. And I think that you guys are going to be on the next one with Leading the Pack, and that'll come out next week, Thursday. Thanks everybody for listening. I really appreciate it, and we'll be back next week. Okay, bye.
Thanks, guys.